Florida homeowners premiums have been skyrocketing for some time right now. We've finally gotten to a point where just about everybody, whether you're left, right, center, apolitical, can admit that there is a litigation crisis. The state of Florida, which is one of the top 3 largest markets for homeowners' personal lines property insurance in the United States, is responsible for between 7 and 8% of homeowners' claims nationally. This is a reasonable number. What if I then told you that Florida courts are home to just under 80% of litigated, that means a lawsuit's happening, property insurance claims in the entire country? So we have less than 10% of the claims, but 4 out of 5 claims with a lawsuit in the whole country. Folks, this is a problem, and it's why the Florida Legislature called a special session in May of 2022. A lot of people would say some exciting things were done, and while 2 bills, known as Senate 2D and Senate 4D, were passed, unfortunately, it's my opinion, and the opinion of many, that their net effect is basically 0. Why is that? Unfortunately, we do have a governor and incoming House and Senate leadership here in Florida that is pro-tort reform. What that translates to is they recognize the need to curb the outrageous amount of litigation going on. Some litigation is natural. There will be claims that go sideways, there will be people that are wronged, there will be an adjuster who doesn't do his job perfectly, etc., etc. That's why we have the system we do. However, when the system becomes incentivized to take advantage of the ability to litigate, to inflate claims, and to enrich a very finite number of personal injury attorneys, public adjusters, and crooked contractors, now we've got a real problem, and it's a problem that we are all paying for. One of the things that pains me the most as an independent insurance agent selling personal lines coverage in the state of Florida is the daily occurrence of a renewal coming in where a homeowner had been paying something like $1,500 or $1,600 a year on their prior term, and the policy's renewing for $4,000, $5,000, or even $6,000 a year for the next term. That is not, folks, because of evil profiteering insurance companies. That is because we have allowed the system to devolve into a place where there's so much litigation, so many lawsuits, that the insurance companies are fighting to survive. In fact, in the last year or year and a half, we've had over 6 insolvencies. That means 6 insurance companies fail. Not pull out of the state willingly, but come into financial hot water and be forced out of the marketplace. If we take that time frame back and make it 2 or 3 years, it's nearly a dozen carriers. The system's broken, and we need to fix it, and you need to reach out to your state level legislators, your state representative and your state senator, and tell them to pursue meaningful tort reform. So let's go through the May 2022 legislative special session. Governor DeSantis called it because he and CFO Jimmy Patronis and Insurance Commissioner David Altmaier, although Florida's in an interesting position where the insurance commissioner does review rates and a lot of solvency information and things like that, but the insurance commissioner is not directly a regulator, whereas the CFO, Chief Financial Officer, is. They all recognize the problem in this marketplace. So they called a special session, but had some hostile leadership, particularly in the State House of Representatives. 2D and 4D passed. While their proponents can go, look at what we did, they ultimately did nothing. They did not deal with the systemic problem. They did not deal with the disease. They simply tried to deal with some symptoms. I don't want to screw these numbers up, and I want to tell them to you precisely. So let me grab a couple of notes and tell you about how the champions of $150 million that 2D allocated to My Safe Florida Home program, designed to benefit Florida homeowners if they choose to harden their homes. In fact, I sat in a specific state representative's office who happens to be from the downtown Orlando area and had a conversation about home hardening this legislative session back in January prior to the special session. She was a champion of it. Let's talk about how it was actually executed. Its proponents can say, we allocated $150 million to the homeowners of the state of Florida. Well, any one homeowner can get a maximum of $10,000. So let's do some math. $150 million with a maximum payout of $10,000. In that scenario, 15,000 Florida homeowners could benefit. Here's the thing, there are over 10 million, in fact, 10,054,457 homeowners in the state of Florida. Let me say it another way. This could possibly affect 0.1% of Florida homeowners. Not 1%, 1/10 of 1%. There are some new stipulations on how contractors can solicit. So we talk about these crooked contractors trying to qualify you for a free roof, which really means rip off your insurance company and say that you have hail damage from 3 years ago, which is completely unprovable today. Well, now they have to put disclaimers in their literature and inform you when they're speaking with you that, things like you must pay the deductible. However, the jury's still out, proverbially, on how enforcement's gonna go. And do most people read all the disclaimers in a 10-page or more stack of paperwork that they might sign with a contractor? The truth is, the net effect, nil. So they've got to put some disclaimers and keep on doing what they're doing. The third thing is that property insurance companies are now allowed to offer a separate roof deductible. Traditionally with homeowners insurance in Florida, you see an all other perils deductible and either a named storm deductible or a wind and hail deductible. Well, now they can offer a roof deductible. I'll spare you the specifics on the optional features of this roof deductible. Suffice it to say, it's required by law that a policyholder can opt out. So let me ask you a question. If you could have a roof deductible of $1,000 or a roof deductible of $10,000, which one would you pick? Yeah, most people are gonna opt out. The fourth major element of 2D is that homeowners insurance companies can no longer use roof age as an underwriting qualifier. In other words, they can't say, we won't insure your home because your roof is over 15 years old or over 10 years old. The thing is, a lot of companies are just finding other underwriting variables to evoke when they don't want to write a risk. The truth is, there is a vertical graph that when a shingle roof hits about 12 years, 13 years old, losses get out of control. So if not roof age, something else. And again, we're triaging a symptom here, not treating a disease. So, was the Florida special legislative session in May 2022 a success? On paper, it did some things. It created some reforms. Will those reforms lead anywhere in the real world? That's yet to be seen. I believe the answer to be, no, it won't move the needle, not even a little. So let's talk about Bill 4D real quick. Basically, 4D deals with some building code changes as relates to if your roof has to be repaired. If your roof was built after a certain age, only a certain portion has to be rebuilt up to the most modern codes because it probably already is up to them. And it deals with some condominium issues in the wake of the Surfside collapse. So, in short, did the Florida special legislative session of May 2022 do much to help you, the Florida homeowner, or help our over-bloated court system with fraudulent and questionable litigation? Nah, didn't do a darn thing. Rather than just be a negative Nelly about the legislative special session and our market climate and regulatory climate and the litigation crisis that we all face here in Florida as relates to property insurance, let's look forward. With leadership coming in to the Florida House and Senate in the form of Paul Renner and Kathleen Passidomo, we have champions of tort reform coming into power. All other politics aside, there is a chance, and it is expected by most industry experts, that we will finally see meaningful tort reform in 2023 and/or 2024. Unfortunately, insurance typically is rated based on past experience. So that means that those reforms need to play out before we actually see relief in the form of premiums falling back to reasonable levels. That means there's hope in sight, but it might not be until 2026 or 2027 until we can achieve a healthy marketplace again. And remember, as hard as it is to do with anything in today's world, we've got to keep the politics out of it and have a healthy, robust marketplace for insurance.